to, hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm Paul Elam with an ear for men and a voice for men. And I am with someone who absolutely needs no introduction, even by me. But before I get to her, I have much more important things to talk about. Um, just kidding. I'm with Karen Strawn, and we're going to have a hangout here over the next 30 or 40 minutes that we're both doing somewhat grudgingly. I don't like doing this. I want to give you a little background on it. Every once in a while, when people leave organizations, they feel like they need a parade or a cause or a way to shine a light on themselves. We saw that at AVFM with people like Willie Bumblebee and a few others that I won't even go into because it's really not worth digging up any of that. But for the past few months, Dean Esmay, former editor-in-chief at A Voice for Men, and who I will say, in all fairness, did an outstanding job for a long time at A Voice for Men. But he's left, and we left with him on good terms, with me personally. I mean, we continued talking as friends for a good long while. And what I saw happening was a sort of a turn in Dean's focus, and he became focused on Catholicism and on Christian men and men's issues from that perspective. Again, I think it's a great idea. However, and I knew you guys knew there was a however coming, Dean has gone off the deep end with, one, the allegation that AVFM was mistreated Christian men who belong there, which is, it's a lie. Never happened. And as evidence, I offer at least some extent that I have done videos in the past supporting Christian gospel as a narrative. I mean, I am an atheist, there's no doubt about it, but I definitely believe in the moral lessons of the Bible. And I never allowed material on A Voice for Men that gratuitously attacked religious people. I just didn't have room for that there, didn't want it. I thought it was alienating to Christians and men of other religions. I didn't want that. But, as they say in Tavistock model psychology, everybody needs an identified enemy. If you want to have a cause or promote a cause, you got to have a boogeyman. And Dean's boogeyman has become AVFM, the men's rights movement as it is, and of course the Honey Badger Brigade, which we all know how evil and anti-Christian they are. And with that, I'm going to introduce Karen Strawn, and we're going to have a back and forth, talk about what's going on. And then at the end of this discussion, I'm putting this in the rear view and never looking back at it again. You will never see me talking about Dean or his antics. He can do what he wants to do. I'm going to have my say here. I'm going to give Karen her say on behalf of the Honey Badgers. And then we both agreed, sort of, we're just going to move past this and go on to better things, cooler heads prevailing. Hi, Karen. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right. I have a bit of a bug up my ass these days, it just seems like I remember the good old days when it was Manhood Academy that used to follow me all over the internet and all over YouTube. And every time I left a comment somewhere, or every time somebody was discussing something I had said, he would leave some big, long diatribe, or short, all caps diatribe in the case of Manhood Academy. But that seems to be what Dean is doing. And the only thing that I can actually pinpoint as far as, because I considered him a personal friend, and we have a long track record of being fond of each other and all of that stuff, right? And he left A Voice for Men. I was quite disappointed that he had, but we continued to talk for a few months, and then he started a new project called Escaping Atheism, and he asked me, as a personal favor to him, to use my platform to promote his new project. And I went and I had a listen to some of his videos, and what I found was they were really antagonistic towards atheists, even atheists like me. I wouldn't even I'm an atheist in the sense that I don't believe in God, but not in the sense that I believe that God does not exist, right? Like, because I'm always open to the possibility. And like you, I find that there's a lot of value in tradition, not just in the Christian scriptures, but in all religious texts. There's a lot of value, a lot of wisdom. Um, so, and I think that we often throw the baby out with the bathwater when, atheists at least, right? So I have valid criticisms of movement atheism and stuff like that. Um, Particularly the anti-theist aspects of it, and or people who are anti-theist. So, I mean, like, I've never taken an anti-religious position, but his videos that I watched they were super antagonistic, and they were completely devoid of argumentation. So it was essentially I mean, he wasn't even making circular arguments based on presuppositions and stuff like that. He just essentially said, clearly they're anti-religious because it's clear and I've seen it, and therefore it's clear and done. Right. And so I'm thinking,
I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing, but I mean, it's like you're reading my mail with what I've seen of Dean.
Yeah, no. And it was just like, really, this is what, like, I'm all for watching religious people and atheists debate. I'm all for watching somebody who's sort of an atheist, but sort of not, like Jordan Peterson, debate and promote the utility and the positive aspects of religion, right? Like, he says, it's not that I believe in God, it's that I act as if God exists, right? That's how Jordan Peterson puts it. And I would say that's like a great way to live, even if you don't believe in God. Act as if he exists. Um, but there was just nothing of value on Dean's channel that I could see. And I was just like, I'm not going to alienate half my audience by promoting your stuff. Like, good luck to you, but I can't do this. And then he did this weird farewell thing, to, like, it was just this very, very strange sort of, and it is at this point that I must cut you out of my life forever kind
You're
of
dead
statement.
to me now.
Yeah, no, yeah, like, literally, you're dead to me now. I'm defooing you, right? Or whatever, right? De-family of origining you, or whatever. Like, we are no longer friends. Good luck with that. And then it was a few months later, he started posting some, comments on and making videos about, and they all have this weird sexual undertone. He's like, I've beaten up your atheist boyfriends. I bet that turns you on, and all kinds of really weird stuff that I just like, and I tried to ignore it. Then this thing with Jim, Mr. Medicare, came up, and Allison kind of got pulled onto a sort of an internet blood sports thing over some other drama that she didn't really have anything to do with. And then Dean was like, I want to come on and talk dirt about the honey badgers. And, he'd been on internet blood sports a few times. And then Jim was like, yeah, I want to go on with Dean and find out all the dirt about the honey badgers. And then, God, like, he left me a really bizarre comment. I don't know if you're going to post the link.
I will be happy. We're going to be posting links. Anything you want to put, we want to get it all in this one place, like I said, so we can be, done with it.
But I mean, like, just the, like, the, he was, I mean, he like,
there was something about you and a bullwhip, wasn't there?
It was a horsewhip.
Oh, excuse me.
It was about if we were ever in the same place, he would have me hog-tied naked to a tree, and he would horsewhip me until I had come 3 to 4 times for the entertainment of the audience. And then somebody, I don't even know who, but somebody sent a screenshot from a Discord server that was used by, Mr. Medicare and Andy Worski and, Tonka Saw and all those blood sports people, right? And Queen of Dance, who arranges the shows for Andy Worski, of him asking her, can somebody get a message to Jim? I want to say I think he's a piece of shit, but I don't have any grudge against him. And personally, I will go on air. I promise I will go on air. I will essentially give him a rim job on the air, suck his dick, say I admire him, all of this stuff that's completely untrue. If he gives me the opportunity on a large platform to skin a honey badger on the air. And and then he bragged about this weird threat that he'd sent me. And it was just like, I'm thinking to myself, like, is this what Jesus would do? Like naked, hog tying, horse whipping orgasms? Like, what? Like,
well, I guess it depends on which century you're in. Yeah.
Well, I would say that there might be some priests who would do that, but I don't think it's what Jesus would have done.
Not according to scripture. It's not what he would have done. And that's actually something that I've read. I'm going to say I want to back up for a minute, because to give people a more complete picture, at least of what I've seen of this, the signs of something being amiss went back pretty far.
Yeah.
The first conflict, which ultimately I believe, and again, I can't be sure because what Dean says his motivations are is sometimes weird to try to interpret. Mm-hmm. But we had one of the writers for AVFM, while Dean was editor-in-chief, put in an article in which he referred to Bill Cosby as a serial rapist, not alleged, not convicted, not accused, just he's a serial rapist. And it turned out that the guy had a brief relationship with one of the alleged victims.
Oh.
And it also turned out that the guy happened to be black. I said, no, we don't. I'm sorry, this is a voice for men. We really are not big about, printing false allegations or unproven allegations of sexual assault against men. Yeah. And yes, I'll say it, especially black ones, because there is disproportionate treatment there. But the guy got mad and left. Eventually, I think he calmed down a little bit. But Dean took this on. I mean, we were having running jokes in staff that Dean had found his inner 1968 oppressed black man from Detroit. And even taking on notes of the dialect and behaving as though that he were personally wounded by this act of racism on my part, that I refused to let a black man publish an article accusing another black man or calling another black man a rapist without proof. And that made me a racist. So you can imagine my bizarre meter at this point is like going up, way up past the red line.
Yeah.
But he left and he put on Tweet Longer, and it's still there for anybody that wants to see it, unless Dean runs and takes it down now. He wrote a glowing review of his relationship with me, said he would always be, this was after he left, said he would always be a loyal friend. And he said, of all the people I knew and dealt with, Paul was the only one that hung on to his values and didn't go back on his word, which I took as a great compliment.
Well, okay, yeah. I just don't understand where I went back on my word with him. I mean, he asked me for a personal favor.
No, he did. He wasn't mentioning you.
No, I know, but you're the only one. You're the only one who never went back on the word.
I was the only one. I mean, I'm the chosen one, apparently. Yeah, well, or at least I was at that time. But my point is that somewhere between then and now, without any experience with me or any experience at AVFM at all, his whole entire narrative changed, because he didn't say a word ever while he was there about Christians being left out or mistreated or anything like that. Never brought that up. It was never a subject. and it didn't come up afterward either, but it was after he got into this Max Colby thing
Yeah.
and started developing the atheists. And look, you know something I'm going to say for the record too. I get
Oh,
some of this. Atheists online drive me the fuck crazy.
oh
I
yeah. A
can't.
lot
I
of them.
can't
A lot of
stand.
them are complete cunts. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and all they do is sit around and gloat about how superior they are to Christians, and that's all they want to talk about is how dumb Christians are and stuff. And those guys are a flat embarrassment, and it's why I think, in large part, the atheist community online failed and let itself be co-opted by feminists because you have intellectually weak people who just basked in the idea of being an edgy little atheist for the world. But that being said,
Right.
um, Dean went off the deep end then, and it seems to be getting progressively worse. And in the midst of this, lest I forget, I'm, this is cold stuff, but I'm going to say it. I got a phone call one day, maybe, I don't remember if it was 6 months before Dean left, 6 months after, it really doesn't matter. Got a phone call from his wife who had had surgery. And Dean had stolen all of her pain medication. And I mean, she was like in the dozens of stitches in
And
delicate areas.
not stolen it and hid it, but stolen it and taken it.
Stolen it and ate it all.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and I even advised her, she called me for advice, and I gave her the same advice I would give anybody, is that I'd get somebody like that the fuck out of my life. I
Yeah.
mean, that is, but that's her deal. I respect that. Well, can't say I respect it, but I accept it. I don't have a qualm with it. But again, between what happened with the article on Bill Cosby that was not published and stealing pain pills from a family member that is in serious pain after surgery, there's something else going on there. And I'm not going to pretend I know what it is, Karen.
Well,
But I
you
know
know,
it's gotten worse, and I know that HBB has been the real target of his ire of late.
yes, and one of the things too, right? Like, because I noticed this before he left A Voice for Men is, and because we were friends and we were in contact over Skype and stuff like that, and he was doing a new form, of like a new to him anyway, form of therapy, neurofeedback or something like that. He was trying to essentially use electrodes and like EEGs and stimuli to rewire his brain. And he's always had issues with, like maybe a little bit of autism, like he's on the spectrum, and he's had he told me he had ADHD, and which is probably one of the reasons why he was such a brilliant thinker, why he was one of the top independent political bloggers like 15, 20 years ago. Like,
Until he burned bridges with his contemporaries then.
there you go. But, like he does and always has had, or always had a way of looking at things that was quite, astute and intuitive and insightful, right? And it's one of the reasons why he and I were friends, and we would talk for hours sometimes. But he was telling me about this therapy, and he was saying, like, oh, I've had my fourth treatment, and I'm thinking more clearly than ever. And I would go and I would look at his Twitter feed, and his Twitter feed had gone from actually making arguments. And he used to actually pride himself on the fact that, and he told me, you should go on Twitter. I was like, I can't fucking do 140 characters. Fuck that shit. Right. Not going to do it. Right. And he said, it's actually a really good mental exercise to be able to make an argument in 140 characters. Right. And make sense. Right. And that was what he was actually he was quite good at that for quite a long time, was making an actual argument or posing an insightful question or something like, or a question that would make you think, right, in 140 characters. And but when he was telling me, like, I've never been able to think so clearly, I've gotten off the vape, I don't vape anymore, I don't smoke anymore, I'm like, and I'm thinking so clear, and I'm thinking, looking at his Twitter feed, and all it is get the fuck off my Twitter feed, you misandrist bigot. Over and over and over and over and over again to various people. And I'm thinking, okay, I guess that's thinking clearly, because, it's really clear. You have tunnel vision. It's like perfectly 100% focused on this one thing that isn't an argument. Super clear, no nuance, just that super highly focused lens of get the fuck off my Twitter feed, you misandrist bigot. And I noticed that was happening when he was still at A Voice for Men, when I was still talking to him, and then it continued afterwards, and then he kind of just dropped off the map for a while, and then he reached out to me and said, "Would you please promote this Escaping Atheist project of mine?" And I was just like, no, I can't. I could promote, like, I'm happy to do Jesse Lee Peterson's show. I'm happy to talk about how there's plenty of value in the scriptures, in the gospels, in religious thinking and religious morality and in all of that stuff. Even though I don't believe in God, I think
Yeah,
that
I was just on his show a couple of weeks ago, and he asked me if I was religious, and I told him no, but it doesn't really make much difference in terms of our conversation, because religious or not religious, we're both coming to the same conclusions.
Yeah.
And so I guess I didn't get the memo that I hated Christians.
I know me either. Stephen Crowder, Tom Woods, Jesse Lee Peterson, Jordan Peterson, like all of these religious men, and like I am super, super, super fond of all of them. Like I don't, I never got the memo that, like, and one of the things too that he, put up in a video, and this is one of the really weird things, is like he accused Hannah Wallen of being a witch, and not like euphemistically, like not like, oh, she's a bitch, like witch, right? But like climb on her broomstick with a pointy hat and fly through the air kind of witch. And he accused Allison of worshiping Egyptian demons, who, according to him, have conferred on her the power to control other people's minds.
Oh, dear mother of God.
I know. It's bizarre. I don't know if you ever listened to, he did a video where he was talking with his younger son, who is actually really on the spectrum. I don't know if you met his younger son.
Yes, I have. I've been in his home a couple of times.
Yeah, there you go. And his younger son is really, really, really quite, he's the kind of person that you wouldn't ever want to just happen to mention your phone number around, because it'd go into his little record thing. He's idiot savant almost, right? And he would remember it forever, and he'd announce it. Oh, Karen Strawn, 780-716, blah, 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 right? 12409, blah, blah, blah street, right? He would remember that, and he would recite it, right? Like he did a video where he had a conversation with his younger son where he was like, would you ever talk to an atheist? No, Dad, because they don't believe in God, right? And then he's like, would you ever trust an atheist? No, Dad, because they don't believe in God and they hate religious people and they want us all to die, right? And I'm listening to this and I'm going,
man, I'm glad I didn't see that or hear it.
Oh yeah, no, it was just like horrifying to me, because it's not even necessarily that he's having this conversation with his child.
That's it for me.
But he's putting it online, right, as some kind of evidence as to, his virtue. And I'm just like, okay, what does your son think of the naked hog tying and horse whipping and the orgasms for the audience? Like, what does your younger son think about?
Dad, because they hate Christians.
She deserves it, Dad, because she hates Christians and she wants them all to die and she persecutes us, right? And it's just, I'm just like, I am blown away by, like, there is a line in a book, in a series of books by one of my favorite authors, Guy Gavriel Kay. He originally, his language of origin is French. He writes in English. He's Quebecois. Um, and the line is how the mighty had fallen, right? How far he had fallen. And it's like, so he goes from this top notch political blogger, this guy who seemed to be really on top of things and you know, I mean, he's always had his issues, but really on top of things. And now it's just, and it's so sad to me. I mean, like I actually, the reason why I actually got into that dust up, that big drama with Mr. Medicare, you know, where I uploaded a video shit talking him, he uploaded a video shit talking me. That was all because I saw on a Twitter feed that Dean wanted to go on Blood Sports yet again. And Medicare was like, yeah, let's have him on. And I had just held the hand of my father-in-law the day before and watched him die um,
I
of a
know. I'm sorry to hear that.
of a 6-year long process of degenerative brain disease. And there was a point where my father-in-law was astute and insightful, and I mean, he was highly cynical all the time, but he was highly competent, and very, very intuitive about the human condition, and just bang on. Like, he could literally look at two people interacting and say, yeah, they're going to divorce in 6 months, and it would come into fruition, right? Just from the way he was observing them interact with each other. And so, and then he lost his marbles slowly but surely over the course of about 8 years. He was committed 6 years ago, and into a secure facility because he constantly tried to escape, and he had been a member of the British SAS and in the New Zealand military, and he was 6'4" and, like, you know, 300 pounds, and he could kill you with just his thumbs. And that's not somebody you want wandering around in their slippers and hospital gown out on the grounds, picking fights with passersby. So after he's lost his mind, and, you know, and I had watched that, and then I'm watching this happen to Dean, sort of slowly, you know, just watching his channel and watching his comments and watching his Twitter feed, and when he still had one, and all of that stuff. And it's that case of the only person who doesn't realize that he's crazy is him. And I likened it to beating a retard with a lead pipe. Like, why don't you beat a retard with a lead pipe next? That should be good. That should be funny, right? That'll be great, right? Get you lots of views. Like, how noble is that? You know, like, how manly is that? How tough is that? You know, yeah, you're sure a big man if you're going to do that. And, like, I just felt this. I felt a sense of, like, I just really didn't. I didn't want to see that public spectacle, right? Like, my father-in-law lost his mind in the confines of a secure facility with the care of people who had his well-being in mind and who looked after him and made sure he was okay. And at least he didn't have a bunch of these fuckers, right, begging him to come on and make a public display of the fact that everybody but him knows that he's insane. And so that actually was what made me jump in on that and go, like, you guys are, like, fucking horrible. Like, what the fuck? And that is sort of one of the things that brought that whole drama down.
Well,
And
that, to be honest, you know, hats off to Dean. You know, his antics to create drama worked.
Well, yeah, and then, like, and it's not like I knew he wouldn't appreciate me for it. I knew he wouldn't be like, "Oh, thank you for defending me," because here I am essentially saying like he's crazy. And he doesn't want to even look at that. Who would want to look at that? And so yeah, and I'm just like, and so I can understand why he's got like this super grudge against me, especially now. Um After I sort of uploaded a video where he was like at least part of the story, and made my feelings about his participation in certain online forums known, like what I think of that and what I think of the people who allow him in there to make a fool of himself. He doesn't want to feel like he's been made a fool of. But one of like, so I get that, but at the same time, it's not like he wasn't poking and poking and poking and poking and poking and poking. It's not like he wasn't, prior to that, for 6 months prior to that, uploading videos about me, uploading videos about Allison, uploading videos about Honey Badger Brigade, and accusing us of all kinds of horrible things, right? And he still continues to leave comments where he says, I have multiple individuals who have these grievances against Karen. I have names that I can name, and so call me if you want me to name the names of all the names that I can name, right? and it's like, why don't you do it here? And he's like, we're even considering suing them. And I'm like, please fucking do. If you actually have to submit a cause of action, I might figure out what the fuck I did. Because you won't actually come out and say it. All you say is she hates and persecutes religious men. And I'm like, give me an example.
I want to be also careful to say, and because I think it's important that this, am I upset with what Dean's doing? Well, I don't like it. Um, I think it embarrasses him. I think it embarrasses his family. And I think it honestly feels like a knife in the back to a lot of people who were like helping raise money to fix his teeth, who were including him and supporting him in many, many, many different ways. I mean, that's between him and, whatever God he professes to believe in. I don't care so much about that. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of untrue things have been said, untrue things about me, untrue things about HBB, Karen, Allison, all those, including, ABFM Suze McCarley has been drug into it. Hannah Wallen's been drug into it. Ed. So as much as I don't like this thing, and the reason you haven't heard me speak to it in for the longest time is because I don't like this shit. I don't like talking about it. I don't like having to come out publicly. But Dean earned a lot of credibility back in the day. And whatever of that credibility carries with him might make the lunacy that he's selling right now seem somewhat plausible. And for that reason alone, I'm coming out with my side of the story. I'm allowing a platform for Karen representing HBB to get this out and to say this is our side of this. And for me, once we sign off for the night, I'm not talking about this anymore.
Well, for me, I'll continue to, and this is like, he can say whatever he wants on my videos, right? Like, I'm not going to block him or anything, or on my Twitter feed, right? But when he goes into, large channels that aren't me, and starts saying stuff, I will continue to, essentially call him on the, because I can't afford to have people in virgin territory who have no idea who I am, right?
Well, we've always got the link to this hangout.
There you go, and I might just link it. But one of the things that I wanted to say too is like part of my distress with this, and it's like, because I mean, like, I'm going to interview with BuzzFeed at the end of the month, for fuck's sake, right? Like, okay, I don't have any problem with. I'm on the Southern Poverty Law Center's website by name as a male supremacist enabler, right?
Yeah,
Like
but you don't
I
have
don't.
hate group status. I'm a one man hate group, so
You,
you
you,
got a lot of catching up to do there,
you're
lady.
just an overachiever, you fucker.
Well, I
Um,
think that's misogyny. Of course, they recognize a man before a mere woman.
that's right, yo mama. But yeah, it, but it's essentially like I don't have a problem with people saying mean things about me or even saying things that aren't true about me. Like it doesn't bother me. It doesn't get me upset. But in this case, because Dean and I were friends, like for like 4 or 5
It's
years, we
different.
talked like several times a week, and he gave me some really good advice on what to do with my channel, and he was the one who talked me into monetizing my channel, to putting ads on it, to putting a PayPal button out. I was just like, oh God, I don't want to look like I'm profiteering, right? And he was like, no, 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 you got to do this, because people value it, and it's worth, it takes your time, and if you want to do more of it, this is what you should do. Like there were so many ways in which he was helpful to me and a friend to me. And I don't know. I can understand that he has animosity with Allison. There was, a period of a couple of weeks when you went on vacation and kind of left the two of them in charge. And I know that Allison can be really difficult to get along with, even if you're
Oh,
neurotypical.
who on earth would say such a thing?
Oh my goodness, I think she would say such a
Yeah,
thing.
I think she probably would, but
And
she can be hard to get along with, but she is also very good to get along with in a
Oh,
lot of
she's
ways too.
she's she's like pure honesty in a lot of ways, and a lot of people have a hard time handling that. And I mean, and but I think they butted heads during that period of time, and it was just like, and I think that was sort of the end of their friendship, if there was a friendship there, um, just because of that situation. But there was nothing like that between me and Dean. It was just essentially I said, I'm not going to promote your channel. I hope you understand my reasons why. And then he said, farewell, my good friend, and I wish you the best of luck. And then a few months later, he started uploading all kinds of fucked up shit about me. And I was like,
Let me ask you something, and I know you can't give an expert opinion on this, but I also happen to share one experience with you. Is that I noticed that when Dean initiated the neurofeedback therapy was about the time that not only that did he start claiming these phantasmical, wonderful, great effects from the
mhm,
therapy, but he seemed to become more irrational from
yes,
that point forward.
yes.
Do you think that it could have something to do with it?
I think so. Like I've from what I've read, because when I saw it happening, I actually looked up neurofeedback, about when he was a couple months into it, and he was telling me my thinking's never been clearer, and his Twitter feed was telling me otherwise. Um, and so I looked into it, and it appears to be safe, but I don't know whether that's the case if you, say, have a head injury that you haven't disclosed to the doctor who's administering it, or if you have other psychological problems that you haven't, disclosed to the doctor who's administering it, or if you stop in the middle of it, um, or if you maybe, because a lot of it seems to do with you are consciously, by your own choice, choosing to change your patterns of thought. Well, what if your choice of the patterns of thought you want is not the pattern of thought that is
And
healthy?
it can be a combination of all those things too, because, back with the incident with the stolen pain medications, Dean's big statement of accountability after being caught stealing all the medicines, and I remember the words exactly, was, I'm sorry if I disappointed you.
If, yeah.
Yeah. if I disappointed you. There was, to me, and it's what I saw earlier with the incident with the article that we rejected over Bill Cosby, was there seemed to be this absolute inability to be accountable for anything at all.
Yeah,
That
no.
just absolutely refusal. There's no such thing as taking personal response. No owning your shit, as Karen would say.
Well, I mean, like, and as far as owning your shit, if you're going to drop comments all over the place and even leave your own phone number in them and say, please call me so I can tell you what a horrible woman this is, um, and tell you all of the horrible things she's done. Karen, I have names, many individuals with names that I could name because I have their names.
I have
Um,
binders full of names.
yeah, and I'm like, uh, one, just give me one name, right? Like, why do I have to engage with you to know one of these names? Like, and
And
like,
that
I
makes
don't.
me sad because that is a difference. No matter what elements of Dean that were negative in the past, and all the years that I knew him and that I talked to him regularly, being a liar wasn't one of the things I ever saw.
No, no.
That what you're telling me just now of him claiming to have names that he obviously does not have.
Oh, he might. Like, I'm sure that I've pissed off some people in this movement,
Well,
right?
but why isn't he naming them? I mean,
Well,
that's what he would do. He's going for the jugular. So and part of that, he's overreaching with this claim of name. So I'm not going to continue this drama with a challenge to him, but I just wanted to point out that it went from at least he was, quirky but honest
yeah.
to making up, I mean, these sadistic fantasies and confabulations and fabrications about
Egyptian
what
demons
he
and
know, Egyptian
mind
demons.
powers.
And it's like, man, I tell you what, if that's neurofeedback, keep me the fuck away from
Well,
neurofeedback.
I don't know that it is because, like I said, and I was thinking to myself, like, everything that I'm reading about this it seems like it's safe, right? But then I'm thinking as things are going along that, like, okay, but what if you conceal this mental issue that you have, or this, brain lesion that you have from a head injury, or this whatever,
It's
right?
possible. And Dean had mentioned to me that he did have a closed head trauma. I never got any details about it. But he mentioned it once. I didn't feel like prying, so I didn't ask anything else. I
Yeah.
don't know.
So I don't know. Like, I mean, like, maybe neurofeedback is perfectly fine for 99% of the population, but
Or
and
maybe
maybe
it
it's
just took
not
me.
what caused this. Maybe it's not what caused this.
Maybe it just took me 8 years to figure out that Dean's an asshole. I don't know.
Well, or
Uh,
maybe he has a degenerative brain disorder like my father-in-law, and he's just going and going and going and going, and eventually maybe he will have to stop because he is so incoherent that he has no choice, right?
Whatever it is, I wish Dean Esmay and his children, his wife, everybody in his life, I wish them the best. I wish them health and happiness down the road. I feel awful that I felt like I had to go public and have this discussion with Karen. I'm fucking pissed about it, to tell you the truth. I mean, shit, Woolly Bumblebee, okay, no big surprise, right? Not as huge. But Dean was a man of earned stature in my life, and this hurts, and it upsets me. And I'm glad I'm doing it though, because this is the last I'm ever going to fucking talk about it.
All right, and this is probably the last I'm going to talk about it, other than clarifying falsehoods where I find them. But essentially, yeah, no, I find, like, I just find this whole thing sad, right? And it it's just sad. Like, I've talked to Gigi, his wife. I've talked to both of his sons. Um, and his younger son actually more than his older one, because his younger son used to be sort of in the background when I was talking to Dean on over Skype, right? So he's in the background making all kinds of trouble and fiddling with stuff, and taking apart headphones and things like that. But I and I really hate that to think that they're being dragged down into this kind of internet drama madness with him, that he's sort of carrying them over this cliff. And I don't think that he's in his right mind at all. And that's probably the saddest thing of all, is that he seems to be able to put on a suit for limited periods of time and look and sound sane when he's not. And yeah.
And on a lighter note, young lady, I'll be seeing you in July.
Yeah, and you'll be seeing me on BuzzFeed too.
Yes. BuzzFeed also wrote me and asked to be interviewed. I gave them a polite decline on Twitter, for which I was banned for 7 days.
How polite was it?
It was very polite.
Did you tell them to go suck a bag of dicks, or?
No, I didn't tell them to suck a bag of dicks.
Hill of dicks.
I'll tell you the truth. I forgot what I said. Is just basically go fuck yourself.
Oh, there you go.
And I tweeted their email.
Oh.
And they considered that harassment. Fuck them. BuzzFeed spent I don't know how much money and time digging decades and decades back into my past, trying to find anybody to talk dirt about me. So they're on warning too. You send me another email asking to talk to me, I'll tweet that motherfucker too, because I don't care.
There you go. Well, I mean, like I essentially I did the preliminary phone interview with them, and I said, like, for all I know, and probably you're planning a hit piece, I don't care, I'll still do it, right? And they laughed, right? And then I was like, but there's something that you guys really need to think about, and it's that as long as you have your fingers in your ears and you're saying la 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 la, we can't hear you, you're allowing the right to own all of these issues. I have been on 7 right-wing talk radio shows over the last week, right? And they all were overwhelmingly positive, right? And when I talk to the left, I get told to stop voting and make sandwiches, right? So essentially, it's your choice. If you want the right wing, if you want conservatives to own all of these issues, just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, those whores want a paycheck.
The hilarious thing is that the host of the show that I'm going to be doing the interview for is named Sachi Cool. And she was on, I'll send you the link. She was on CBC's The Sunday Talk with Wendy Mesley. She was there with she's a feminist reporter at BuzzFeed. She was there with a male feminist lawyer and with Barbara Kay's son, Jonathan, who's just a conservative. He's not a men's rights activist, talking about men's rights activists, right? And this got uploaded, and Sachi Cool was saying, well, I just really don't trust them because they're so transphobic. I mean, there's just so much transphobia in the men's rights movement, right? The very fucking day that was uploaded to YouTube, I was being introduced to Simon Fraser University's Advocacy for Men and Boys Society full lecture hall by their president, a trans woman named Theron Meyer, right?
Yep. And she's a hoot too.
The exact same fucking day. And I'm just like, oh God. And Jonathan Kay, he did a fairly decent job of defending our right to speak and saying, well, if they're crazy, let them talk, right? And people will know they're crazy. Like, what the hell's your problem? But he did try to turn it into a left-right issue and all of this other stuff. And and hatred of conservatives, as if MRAs are conservatives, and it's just, but I just thought that was hilarious. And Sachi Cool is the host of this BuzzFeed News
Well, I'll tell you
show
what,
I'm going to be on.
send me links to any of this stuff, and I will slap them in the description area for this
Sure.
video.
All right.
With that, I'm going to have to cut it off. I got an appointment at the top of the hour.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to roll on. I really want to thank you for taking time, Karen, to talk about this. I know it's been going on for a while.
It has.
But hopefully this will put some rest to it. I know I'm going to make that happen for me.
Yeah, no, I think as long as we've both said our piece and sort of cleared the air, I don't think there's too much. I can just post the link to this hangout, in response to anything that gets said anywhere. But yeah, it's just, I just find the whole thing sad, and
Yes, it is. And with that, I will remind everybody. And again, I got an hour-long appointment. It'll be about an hour from when this went live before I get the stuff into the description area. But there will also, for those of you who might be in London this July and who would want to see Karen and I both, among people like Janice Fiamingo and lots of other notables, would like to see us speak and raise a few glasses with us. The International Conference on Men's Issues is coming up, and you'll find tonight links to tickets in the description area. And with that, I'm going to wish everybody a good day, good night, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.